sense of belonging here on campus. I know a couple of your faces, we went through the Bridge program and we talked about this a lot over the summer, about how important it is to feel like you have a niche in the campus as it contributes to your learning. At least that's what the research tells us. So what we decided to do is that we wanted to bring a speaker in here that would understand this concept. So I'm going to let him talk about what his experience has been in this form of sense of belonging. His name is Rishi Raj over here, and his guest, Christi. And let me tell you a little bit about him before he comes up here. He's a colleague of myself and Heather's and Miss Elenice in the doctoral program that we're in. Makes me laugh all the time. I don't know if he'll do that. He probably will because that's his MO. But he is a good friend, and the research that he's working on right now is called autoethnography. Very rare research that he's a part of, where it's his perspective about his experience looking out into the rest of the world. So I'll let him talk a little bit more. If you would please welcome him up here. Mr. Rishi Raj.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Good afternoon to everyone in attendance today. I'd like to extend gratitude to SSS and Jocelyn, not just for this opportunity to talk, also for the opportunity to speak on sense of belonging, because like Jocelyn said, I've been working with autoethnography for my research primarily right now. So there's a lot of reflection that's been going on, and as I break down my research in different parts of my past, I have noticed the sense of belonging is something that touches all of those phases. So I've realized that the multiple roles and identities in my life have all been about either exploring, navigating, or negotiating this sense of belonging per se. Whether it is in my academic, professional, social, or even personal lives. I've also realized that depending on the phase, at times I would consider myself a majority or a minority. And to some extent I feel like those are circumstantial and contingent in nature. Then based on these experiences, we assign values upon ourselves and our experiences even before someone else does. So I'll go back to my upbringing and start from there. I was born and raised in India in a conservative Hindu family. In addition to that, I attended an all-boys Catholic school from kindergarten to 12th. So unknowingly, since religion plays a big part in society's life, we call it a social institution. Unknowingly, at that time, my mind had already, while growing up, started exploring this sense of belonging. For 13 years straight, ever since I started kindergarten, the preaching in my life was done in Catholic ways, and the practice was according to Hinduism. So there was also always this back and forth between both senses of belonging. Then fast forward to 12th grade, I graduated with my high school diploma. I come to the United States as an international student. I came to Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth, and at that point in time, it was a big transition. Suddenly, I'm a foreign national on an international land. I'm an Indian who's not in India anymore, and I'm an American who's not from America. So this phase, I call this the navigating of sense of belonging, where I belong, where I want to belong, where I should belong, things like those. I attended Texas Women's University in Dallas-Fort Worth, where I did my bachelor's in accounting and then master's in finance later on. So TWU, Texas Women's University, has to be the most interesting time of my life so far. I'm extremely thankful for that phase as well, because there was a lot of identification and self-realization. I went from an all-boys school in India to TWU, the nation's largest university primarily for women. I'm not kidding you, when I was there, the ratio of women to men was 93:7. That was a big shift in not just a cultural shock in terms of being a man who in society is the majority when you talk about gender, going to being a man who's not a minority at Texas Women's University. I remember when I attended orientation over there, there were some other international students. A few of them were also from India. So I had that network to go with for a while. But almost all of those students were in the discipline of science. I wasn't. I chose accounting. So that group, that socialization group existed only for a time. And when that came to an end, I think that is when culture shock hit me the most. All of my roommates, classmates, colleagues, peers, friends, everybody was either a white person, a black person, or a Hispanic person. So the navigation of this sense of belonging, I think it intensified at that point in time. Upon graduating from TWU, I started working at one of the Fortune 500 financial firms called Fidelity Investment in the role of a financial associate. I'm really thankful for that experience because while I gained a lot from it, it also taught me, this was the first time in my life that I realized where I want to belong, and that was not in finance, not in corporate America. Because going back to TWU, my undergrad over there, I had worked throughout in either student affairs or academic affairs, in admissions, scholarships, institutional development, and study abroad. And I realized that those were the most satisfying jobs that I had. And I realized that only after I left TWU and I was in corporate America. So reflecting on my experience with the students that I used to advise for study abroad, I decided I want to be a professor eventually. I want to teach college students in the future. So that is when I decided I'll go back to school for my MBA. Eventually, I would want to get a doctoral degree in business. I thought either economics, accounting, or international business, and then we'll go from there. So I come back to TWU, enroll in MBA, and as that goes along, I worked in event management and logistics. And I also taught. The first course that I taught was freshman English, and the second one that I taught was sophomore government. Both of these classrooms were an amazing experience for me. I learned, I think, more than what the students learned. I'm very thankful for that experience because that was the first time I came hand in hand with the dynamics of higher education. Whether it was from the viewpoint of a student, a faculty, a staff, or an administrator, that was the first time things became real for me. I had already previously decided that I didn't want to be a part of corporate America, but I knew I wanted to do a doctoral degree in business. The change that happened this time was I knew I was going to teach. I would do a doctoral program, but I wouldn't do it in business. I would pursue education. And that was a big contrast, going from business, which is all about profit making, to education, which is all about social good. So many questions as to, do you know how much an accountant gets paid? And do you know how much teachers get paid? So it was an interesting time of figuring out where I belong. So I graduated with my MBA, and I spent that entire year not in an 8-to-5 job. I worked as a consultant, and it has to be one of the best work experiences of my life that whole year, because I worked on a number of projects. I worked in 2 election campaigns in the city of Frisco. I worked in event management and logistics for a time. For a while, I also worked with the Dallas Mavericks. And every single job came out from the network that I had before in the previous job. I found somebody who was opening up an IT startup in Dallas, and I helped him set up his business for accounting, payroll, marketing strategies, things like that. In that business, he had hired a data analyst intern from Oklahoma. I got along with him, and we started a startup of our own. It was called Live Entry Sports. It was a sports and esports commerce platform based on data analysis. So at the end of all of these, this entire year, I was really thankful because, and I'm crazy because I reflect a lot on what I do. So I realized something. I realized that one doesn't always have to seek a sense of belonging. You can also establish it from ground zero, and then have others seek a sense of belonging with you. With your passion towards an area and your knowledge of the field, you can own the context and have it belong to you instead of you belonging to that. Social acceptance and valuing would just follow afterwards. So, of all of these experiences that I told you about, politics, sports, food and beverage, in logistics management, informational technology, I excel in neither of these areas. I do not have a passion, an extreme passion for any of these areas, but my skills were transferable, and I love people. I love about what people do, what I can learn from them, what I can teach them, and this co-creation. I love that. So that helped me excel in all of these areas. Eventually, that year came to an end, and I had decided to come to Corpus Christi. I got admitted in the educational leadership program over here. That is what I have been doing since January 2018. My research area, as Jocelyn mentioned, it involves autoethnography, which is using your experiences and relating it to a big societal issue phenomenon. In addition to research, I started working with graduate students. I would help them wrap up the last part of their degree program, which is dissertations and thesis. And now I teach macroeconomics to first-year seminar students. First-year seminar students, that's an amazing experience because I see that for them it's more about the transition than anything else. They're not high school anymore. They're not college really. They're just in this transition phase, figuring things out. So that has been an amazing lab for me to experiment curriculum and instruction and learn from there. So the content that I learned from business, I get to do that now. I teach economics. And everything that I learned, the philosophies that I'm learning from education, whether it's critical pedagogy, advocacy, social justice, I use those to create my classroom. The bottom line is I am satisfied and happy with what I'm doing right now. I truly believe that I belong here. And because that belief is true, the relationship becomes reciprocal. I feel that the university also belongs to me. The system of higher education, the whole field of American academia, it belongs to me. I'm equally accountable for that as that field is beneficial to me. Once this relationship is established, and this relationship will be different for each one of you, but there's always something that you will relate to. But once this relationship is established, you won't have to look back because now you have a purpose. So now the only two things that are left is working on that path, creating an impact, which would eventually create a legacy. And then everything about being the majority or minority, being overly represented, adequately represented, or underrepresented, will always be there. But this shouldn't stop you from moving forward. Being minoritized is not necessarily the same thing as being marginalized. And many times I've noticed that we marginalize ourselves by classifying ourselves as such. There's no such box between where some people are inside of it, some people are outside of it. This box is just a mental construct. So each one of us has to stop perceiving ourselves as being marginalized as from a deficit lens. Instead, we could do that from an asset-based lens. Think of it like this. As a minority, you bring to the table what the entire majority is not able to. That is your power. I am an international student from India in the College of Education and Human Development. Are there any guesses in this department, educational leadership? Can you guess how many other students are in my category? 0. The 0 students who are international students from India in College of Education and Human Department in the Ed Lead department. So now I have two options. I can use this as a reasoning to not being able to find a sense of belonging, or I can use this to empower myself. Because the experiences and opinions that I bring to the table are unmatched by anyone. So one of the most popular terms in higher education these days is diversity. Some people know what it means and how to use it and how to work towards it. Some don't. If you use every marginalized, minoritized, majority, every voice that you have at your disposal, if you use all of those and deal with them, you will really make a better department, a better college, a better system. Even if you keep the term diversity, you'll end up with some funding for it. So these various diverse representations make their program, or at the very least, like I said, they will give you funding and resources. But satisfying this need of diversity, this is where every single one, especially the minoritized, they come along. The universities, higher education systems need you now more than ever. The other thing that I think about when I think of this sense of belonging and how we get there is imposter syndrome. Personally, I feel the imposter syndrome does not exist, it should not exist. It's a mental construct. Because if you fall under the minoritized or marginalized categories and you're seeking this sense of belonging and acceptance, because you're not sure if you belong there, remember the system was already built for the majority. They didn't have to work hard to get there. The path was paved for them. If you're the minority or the marginalized, you went through obstacles day in and day out to be there. So nobody deserves that spot more than you. Once you have this clarity, then you start working on creating an impact. And I always come down to impact because impact is a big word. It's huge. You literally change lives. If you have confidence in your knowledge, your passion, and your values, your followership will have confidence in you. That is how you will be able to make an impact. Once you're able to make an impact, create an impact, that is how you will leave your legacy. Your impact will define you once you're gone. Somebody that I follow closely and consider them my mentor, they said, when we depart from this world, our hope is that society would say he or she was a good person. I say it is more important than when we depart from this world, we are contented that we are departing from a good society. So if you have that clarity in mind, nothing's going to stop you. Thank you.